Guys, you'll never believe what I found out about the difference between different shapes and how they experience drag forces and their different coefficients of drag, okay? Look. So I got a couple different shapes here. The first one is this cylinder. That's a pretty simple shape. And then we get a little more complex. We got the square prism. And then this last shape I've got here is the airfoil. So I collected all this data, right? And then I threw it in this handy dandy calculator. And if we run some of these calculations, we can get the values for the circular cylinder, right? So we find a drag force, a drag coefficient of about 0.55 and a Reynolds number of more than 30,000, and our drag force at only 0.01 pounds. And if we take that Reynolds number of 30,000 and we plot it on this log graph, and we go to what we expect to see for a circular cylinder, it actually we expect to see a drag coefficient of more than 1, but we only found one to be 0.55, so that's a lot less. That's pretty crazy. That's nifty. Now, if we look at the square, see, now with the square prism, we don't have as much symmetry, right? So we've got to test it from different angles. So when we say 0 degrees, we're talking about the wind hitting the face directly. And then when we're talking about 45 degrees, we're talking about the wind coming down right onto one of the corners here. And so if we look at the numbers we find, we see that they range in their coefficient of drag and their the drag force. So the largest drag force actually exists at 0 degrees when the wind is hitting directly onto one of the flat surfaces of the square. We get about an absolute value of 3.55. Now, if we compare the coefficient of drag of that to the 45 degree, when the wind is hitting directly onto the corner, we see that when it's hitting the corner, we have a much higher coefficient of drag. So that's pretty crazy. That's pretty radical. Now, if we take the average of these 4 different situations we have where we're hitting the square from different points, we find our coefficient of drag to be 0.026 and our drag force to be an absolute value of 3.2. Now, if we think back to the values we found for the circle, you'll notice that our coefficient of drag here much smaller than the coefficient of drag for the cylinder. Now, the drag force, on the other hand, is way larger in the square prism. So I thought that was pretty nifty. Now, if we're talking about our airfoils, the angle at which we begin to lose, where we completely lose lift, is at 48 degrees. And then you don't regain lift until you go all the way back to 65 degrees. So that's crazy. And if we take our cylinder model and we apply that to a flag that's 30 feet tall and about a diameter of 4 inches, we can take that model and we can find our drag force, our bending moment, and our Reynolds number. So we find a drag force for that flagpole to be about 426 pounds, and then a bending moment where we apply that force onto the middle of the flagpole at the middle height, we get a moment of so large, 6,400 pound feet. And then we look at the Reynolds number. That's the biggest Reynolds number we've seen so far. That's 400,000. That's insane. And now all these numbers are so much larger because on our flag here, we just have a much larger surface area for the wind to be hitting, where we have a height of 30 feet and a width of 4 inches on that diameter, compared to our square prism, where we only had a diameter of our circular cylinder, with a diameter of less than 25 millimeters and a height of 50 millimeters. But yeah, that's all. That's crazy. If you want to see the math, I'll put the link to that Python lab notebook in the description. You can check my working and put in different numbers. This is insane. This is what the government doesn't want you to know.